How long can we wait before you realize I've already hit record? Not that you're
Ooh.
multitasking. Not that the wonderful people who listen to our beloved podcast are not they're not the source of your direct attention. You only have enough attention for them when it suits you. I'm so sorry, lovely audience. Well, that's the end of DBL. We quit.
I'm just getting my materials set up so I'm good and well prepared.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
fair enough. Well,
That
preparation is everything.
also hypocrite. Also, I challenge you to find anyone who's listening to this and not doing anything else while they're doing it.
If you're listening to DBL and all you are doing is listening to DBL, I don't know, maybe you're sat on a sofa having a nice whiskey and thinking, oh, do you know what? I just feel like listening to DBL. Let us know, because if you're not commuting or anything, thank you, I suppose. I can't think of any other time where I would listen to my voice, at least. But
Me
no,
neither.
that, of course, is welcome everybody to DBAle, the Redgate podcast that is all about data and beer. I, as always, am your effervescent, effusive, I won't say wonderful. I'm certainly a host, though. Chris?
And I am maybe Chris.
Oh. Schrodinger's Chris.
Schrodinger's Chris, exactly.
Were we about to say the same thing at the same time?
Yes.
That's creepy. It's almost like we spend too much time together, boss.
Yes, it is.
In any case, that is welcome to DBL episode 34, the episode where we will be discussing nothing but Gilmore Girls.
Happy Gilmore Girls Day.
No. I wonder if there is a Gilmore Girls Day. Huh. I tell you what, I'll look into that.
There isn't like an international body of days. Like, I'm pretty sure these are just made up by people. And I'm pretty sure there are enough Gilmore Girls fans in Cambridgeshire, at least, to justify that.
I think at Redgate alone, we've got plenty of diehard Gilmore Girls fans. But anyway,
as an aside, this is something I always want to ask you.
As an aside, we don't do asides on this podcast.
Always wanted to ask you since last Thursday, but I read an article about the Gilmore Girls film being one of the most disappointing films that had come out of a TV show ever. Discuss.
It wasn't a film. It was a 4-part miniseries. Each one was about an hour and a half long. It was called Gilmore Girls: A Year in the Life. Some fans found it disappointing. Other fans found it emotional and nostalgic. I think it posed more questions than it answered, unfortunately, including one very big question. And unfortunately, with no potential that it's probably going to return, I would say those questions will go unanswered. So many people will probably be unfulfilled by that moving forwards. But you can choose to be salty. You can choose to be that, the Game of Thrones fans who also had major ending issues, and treat it like that moving forwards, or you can treat it for what it was. Of course, a wonderful show that touched the hearts of millions.
That's fair enough. And, there's a good argument to be said about journey versus destination, right?
Exactly.
And as someone who was a big, big fan of Firefly and Serenity.
Anyway, not that we do asides, but speaking of Firefly, I think if I'm tying this in correctly, but Chris, happy International Space Exploration Day.
Yeah.
Or also coincidentally, Happy Moon Day.
Whoop. I've eaten 5 moon rocks in anticipation of this event.
See, can you actually buy, is it like, are we talking like moon rocks, like the pop rocks you used to buy when you were a kid? Or are we talking like moon pies? Because you can get those in the United States, I think, right? Moon pie is like marshmallow in chocolate. It's like a wagon wheel.
Okay. But no, I meant actual literal moon rocks.
Oh, okay. That would explain why a huge chunk of the moon was missing last night. That, or it was just a crescent moon. I don't know. I don't understand.
You see that
space.
Wallace and Gromit episode where the moon is made of cheese?
I have indeed seen that Wallace and Gromit episode. It's called A Grand Day Out, and it's one of my favorites.
Turns out it's literally true.
Welcome to Chris and Chris Review Television on a podcast. But no, of course, today is International Space Exploration Day and Moon Day.
Of course,
If you're listening anytime after the 20th, then unfortunately it has gone. It has gone into a new phase. We have blasted
that's the
off.
great thing, though, about International Moon Day is it comes every single year.
Yes.
Don't be sad because you missed this one. Be excited about the next one.
It's about the journey, not the destination.
Exactly. Exactly. As a wise man once said.
Not you, but someone, I'm sure. But yes, so in this particular episode of DBAle, or what we've got left of it now that we've blithered on for far too long, we are going to be talking about standardization, specifically with regards to version control. I think we're going to be talking a bit more about why it's important to have a considered standardized approach across multiple teams within an organization. Now, you may have already heard us talk about version control in episode 2 all those years ago, back when I looked even younger and Chris hasn't really changed at all. Looked exactly the same. And we talked about the difference between the state-based and migrations-based approach and talked about the merits therein. I thought it was really interesting.
I didn't. I thought it was
Unfortunately,
That's
the
my-
sound quality was terrible.
That's my all-time least favorite episode. That one.
Oh, what's your favorite episode?
Probably this one.
Oh, what about servers that go bump in the nighttime or the deployment before Christmas?
They are both also my joint least favorite episodes.
That's because I had a starring role in them, wasn't it?
Any episode that you feature is one of my joint least favorite episodes of all time.
So you really dislike DBL?
Yes, it's
okay.
awful. I don't know why I do this.
I'm really glad we cleared that up because that will make planning for the future so much easier. But whilst we may have talked about this subject before, we are going to talk about the importance of standardizing your approach to version controlling the database. And it's a difficult subject. But before we do that, of course, we can't talk without a nice little aperitif, a little je ne sais quoi, a little tasty beer. I don't speak French, but Chris, we agreed before this episode, given that it was National Moon Day, we agreed on a particular beer.
I think you've gone down the wrong route here. We agreed to standardize on a particular beer.
Chris, we agreed to standardize on a particular beer, given that it was International Moon Day. And which beer did we agree on, Chris?
We agreed on raspberry pie, which is a raspberry oat milkshake pale ale.
No, that's incorrect. We agreed on Blue Moon, one of the most internationally famous, well-known beer brands.
And easily locatable as well, I'll also
easily
add.
Locatable. And what did you not do?
Go to a shop.
And locate one. Exactly. So Chris is not drinking Blue Moon. I, however, have Blue Moon Mango Wheat. Yeah.
Blue Moon Mango Wheat. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Looks good.
Okay.
I'm really excited. So
those Blue Moon guys and girls decided to really go all in on the people who were claiming that they weren't true Belgian beers then.
Oh yeah.
Mango wheat beer.
This one is definitely a wheat beer. We've got the nice mango apparently crafted with ripe mango. So as opposed to like disgusting unripe mango.
Dry and hard mango.
I'm gonna get this. Is yours already open or are you ready to go?
No, I'm ready. You ready?
Cool. All right. 3, 2, 1. Oh, that was not very impressive at all.
Oh.
But that's fine. We get a good pour. Oh no.
Yourself.
My coaster has stuck to my glass. There we go. Right. It's a good pouring noise, I tell you.
Your mamas are good. Right, we said we wouldn't do those anymore.
Well, I don't know. She listens. Maybe she's been missing a shout out the last few weeks, few
And
months.
she's like half of our listening audience.
And the
Can't
other
stop-
half is me.
Yeah, can't start making your mama jokes, otherwise we'll lose half our audience.
Oh,
For those who have DBAle Premium and can see the video of this, Chris's face is doing an interesting variety of facial poses.
yeah. I'm not sure what I think about this. I should have just gone with a blue moon rather than seeing the mango wheat and going, oh, that sounds fancy. I'll go with that. It's not bad. It's like it tastes mango-y when you first sip it, and then the mango just immediately disappears. Yeah, I don't really know what to say. It tastes like slightly older blue moon, but just really like if someone's thrown mango puree in your beer.
I find that a bit weird. Yeah.
How's yours?
It's fine. Like, it's not a bad beer. It's just not a hugely strong flavor.
And what was it again? Which brewer, etc.?
Raspberry Pie, which is a raspberry oat milkshake pale ale. It's made by Brew York. It's quite a nice beer, but it's not particularly strong in taste.
Oh well, there was that damning review from Mr. Kurzweil there. Gosh, honestly. Phew.
Yeah, it's got oat milk in it.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah.
So suitable for vegans. Lovely job.
Yep. Also, this is. Can you see this graph? Let me do the
Looks
old
like a
makeup
magic
review
quadrant, doesn't it?
hands. Yeah. So you got this like what is that? Hexagram on the back. Hexagram diagram that shows that it's got 3 out of 4 mouthfeel, 3 out of 4 fruit, 3 out of 4 sweet, but only 2 out of 4 malt. That doesn't seem like a very precise measurement to me.
Oh.
Also, the Berrylicious rating is only 4 raspberries out of 5.
Oh.
Yeah, 4 out of 5
Berrylicious
Berrylicious
berries.
rating. No, don't think that's high enough Berrylicious rating for me. I think I usually prefer my beers to be at least 5 out of 5 Berrylicious.
Well, now that we've wasted time on talking about Berrylicious, let's actually talk about version control, Chris, shall we? Do you take the perfect opportunity to have a sip of your beer?
I mean, you can see me.
This is true.
At the pub, you're just like, hey, I'm going to ask you a question while you're raising your glass to your mouth.
I do that an awful lot.
Wait for someone to just insert the fork into their mouth. So, what are your thoughts on tax havens? And anyway.
Anyway, so let's talk about standardization and the importance of standardizing an approach. And I think before we get started, we really need to highlight the importance of a standardized approach. But also, I think it's important that we emphasize the fact that when we say standardize across development teams, we don't mean that every developer and every team work in exactly the same way all the time.
You know?
No, because each individual team will have different needs depending on what they're working on, right? Some developers will need an entirely different stack. They'll need Linux, they'll need Java, they'll need, PostgreSQL or MySQL. Whereas, all the way on the other side of the office, you may have teams who are wholly, SQL Server, .NET, Windows. That's just where they need to be based.
So take us in our job. So, for example, we tend to have laptops that are capable of loading a virtual machine or 2 or 3, whereas other members of our wider team will be more focused on just going out and giving PowerPoint presentations and don't need to host virtual machines. They don't need a laptop that requires a server rack to be mounted in or a forklift to be carried around.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, if you get a lot of different developers on the same team who are trying to solve the same problem in the same tool stack, then what you need to do is give them the best opportunity to succeed. So you need to provide everything that they need to minimize waiting and handovers and all of the sorts of kind of non-lean IT principles, right? So a good example of standardization would be coding standards. So the way that I write my T-SQL, for instance,
is bad,
and therefore exceptionally different from the terrible way that you write yours. You know, we're two ends of the scale.
Well, we're two ends of a very bad scale.
Yes, exactly. It's a terrible, terrible scale. The
It's
scale
a weird
doesn't even
scale.
weigh anything. Yeah, exactly.
It's a weird scale. It goes from 1 to 10, 1 being the worst and 10 also being the worst. It's like a horseshoe.
It's a parabola.
Yeah, and if you're in the middle, it's also not great either.
I just wanted to say the word parabola.
Parabellum.
Is it y equals x squared?
I should know this, but I don't.
Okay. If you know the equation for a parabola, then hit me up on Twitter at plant-based SQL. Please tell me it's y equals x squared. However, coding standards, very, very important, because when you hand over
it is
a
y
piece...
equals x squared.
Yes! You have a degree in maths, Chris. Come on. No, but that's fine, because you've pwned me on multiple occasions when it comes to mathematics. Like that time we played that guessing game and I was like, can you guess how many? And you were like, yes, it's basic arithmetic. And I was like, oh. So anyway, moving swiftly on, if you have 5 developers in a team, and this is so important, and I'll come to why it's so important. I'm just really excited. I want to say everything all at once, but I'm just blah, blah, blah. Anyway.
So you're being Chris on a normal day.
Yes, exactly. So if you are 5 developers in a team and everybody writes code the same way, except one person who writes all of their T-SQL just in one line and then saves the SQL file down, no one is going to be able to read what you wrote. Like, looking at T-SQL at the best of times is not easy. It's really tough when you've not written the code. And especially if it's not been commented properly, it's really hard to know what it's even doing. You know, is it writing to a temp table? What's it doing when it's written to that temp table? How is it processing that data? Where is it moving stuff? What does it have dependencies on, etc., etc., etc.? It's an absolute nightmare.
I generally agree, although to be fair, I will say, and I still maintain this, that T-SQL is quite a readable language.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. More so than Java or JavaScript or not Python. Python's pretty easy, but
I was more thinking like C++.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I'll give you that. But the point is, when there's a lot of code, it's hard to know what it does because you don't have the context that the developer had. So you are switching context. You're trying to decode what's been done already and then work from there. And interestingly, you know, this kind of goes on to why is it important? And I think there's a couple of reasons why it's important, but we can always talk to the anecdote about the Mars launch. What was it? The Mars satellite, the Mars probe, I think it was.
Mars Curiosity rover is the one I'm thinking of, but I think you're thinking of a different one.
I'm thinking of the $125 million Mars Climate Orbiter. And the reason why I'm thinking of this is because, and it's a really stupid reason, but basically NASA lost their climate orbiter for Mars because effectively half of the engineers were working in the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, or JPL. A JPL JPL scientists use the metric system. But Lockheed Martin Aeronautics in Denver, who were doing the other half of the work, basically, they designed and built the spacecraft and provided their acceleration data in like the old imperial inches, feet, and pounds. So, for instance, the JPL engineers received these acceleration readings, and they were measured in imperial pound seconds, and they just assumed they were Newton seconds. So because of this just lack of communication, because of this silo between the teams working away from each other and just transmitting data and making assumptions, they ended up losing a $125 million probe. Now,
that's always why you show your units, kids.
Absolutely. Show your units, show your workings.
Yes.
Extra points on the paper.
Oh, I've got another good analogy about probes.
Go on, Em.
So one time at band camp, so there is a probe that was launched called the Curiosity rover, also to Mars mission. Interesting use case here for agile development.
Okay.
So obviously space, quite famously big.
Reasonably
people
large.
Say one thing
Not
about
always,
space.
but yes.
Not always, but usually is.
At one point, it was just a singular point. It was just a single infinite dense piece of mass.
Yeah, back in the good old days, eh?
Yeah, I know. Bring back pre-Big Bang.
Yeah, these days it takes me literally light years to cross space. Anyway, so space is quite big, and even the distance between Earth and Mars, that could be quite substantial. So communication between Earth and Mars, assuming you can communicate at light speed, which often isn't the case if you're using like electromagnetic ranges to communicate, as is often done, then that's not always light speed. But assuming you can communicate at light speed, that still can take minutes or even hours, depending on where you're trying to communicate to, right? And often that lag time is quite substantial. So you have to run an update on the software that's running on your rover.
Mm.
This is a classic case where Big Bang deployments are really problematic. Because if you have to deploy this huge bit of software over a huge time distance, any mistake, error, discrepancy, drop in the signal is going to mean that the entire package basically is going to fail. So instead, lots of little pieces, much easier to send a small update over large space distances. So the agile methodology that we talk about quite a lot, CI/CD, and actually in particular NASA for the Curiosity rover was using a lot of the Atlassian stack with Subversion to run their updates on that software.
So they had Subversion and they were using Bamboo.
Yeah.
To build and deploy their changes to Curiosity rover.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. I like that.
There you go.
So that's a little bit of a further away point. Get it? Further away point. Hey, Mars. That's a little bit of a further away point than I think we were planning on going
space.
to. Space is fun. Then I think we were thinking of going in terms of the need for standardization. And in some cases, it's very extreme, right? We're talking about a $125 million probe being lost because two teams didn't think to communicate their measurements properly, and they ended up with a disconnect. But if you think about it, aren't we all in that same position now?
Yes,
exactly. So the funny thing is, with everyone working so much from home now, does it really matter whether or not you're located up the road in Cambridge, for instance, and I'm in, I don't know, Peterborough. I mean, hey, fair play to Peterborough. I'd sooner be in Stamford, but you know, Stamford's beautiful. What a beautiful part of the country. Anyway, so
what are you saying about Peterborough, Chris?
I like Peterborough. They've got some good shops. Moving on. No, but seriously, I do love Peterborough. Some parts.
You love it everywhere.
I do. But the weird thing is, we could very well be a couple dozen miles apart, right?
Or we could be a couple thousand miles apart.
Exactly. You know, you could be working on Mars and I could be working on Earth. But the point that I'm making
it's like
is
that book, if you read, Chris is from Mars, Chris is from Venus.
I love that book, actually. It really kind of, I don't know, it really just broke down how to just understand a Chris. Yeah. But the point is, you could be living on Mars, I could be living on Earth, and we could be developing together in a team, and you have the same problems, right? You have the issue of the silo.
Yes.
And silos get in every situation, they are the bad guy, right? The number of teams I work with who say, oh, I'm going to have to check that one with the DBA peeps. I'm going to have to check that with the developers, or I'm going to have to do this, or I'm going to have to do that. And it's like they don't have a nominated like representative. There doesn't appear to be open communication or knowledge sharing. You know, there's no one effort towards standardizing a development approach and making sure that you have a smooth end-to-end DevOpsy pipeline, right? From the devs making changes to maintaining platform stability. There are so many places, even in the development teams, you know, you can have multiple teams working on the same database and they don't even talk to each other. And it's like, I don't understand, because if a team working so closely together on a project for $125 million can mess it up, then anyone can mess it up, right? And that's the situation we find ourselves in. It's really hard to work remote at times where there is no dispersal of accumulated what's the word, like communal knowledge.
It's it's a tricky one, and I think everyone in the world has the problem, and everyone in the world at the moment is trying to fix the problem of how to best transfer knowledge and make sure people. But I think this is something we've spoken about before, but you know, human beings, it seems, this is my general observation, in the workforce tend to have a little bit of a mistrust. The natural inclination is to mistrust any form of knowledge sharing, whether that be commenting code, whether that be commenting commit messages, whether that be documenting what they're working upon, all of this stuff. There's this idea that you have to make yourself essential to the business because that gives you job security. And most of the time, that's completely unfounded. Like, people's job security isn't reliant on them being this crucial cog in the machine. And often what they do instead is the exact opposite. They create a situation where they are the crucial cog in the machine, and now the business can't move them, which is a negative, not always a positive. You know, yes, you got job security maybe, but also it means that if there's a new position that opens up and you want to go for it, you're going to be less attractive, because that means that you are no longer doing the thing you previously were.
This is absolutely true. What we think will give us the edge, in fact, ends up holding us back, because you're indispensable.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so people often mistrust the business when they're asked to do documentation, because they think, oh, well, this is the business trying to take away from me my precious knowledge. But the opposite is true. The opposite is true. Really, what the business is trying to do is make sure that you aren't the essential cog in the machine. But that's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as someone who previously has had a role where the very purpose of that role is to make something so easy and so widely understood and pervasive within the organization, the goal of that job is to make yourself redundant. The goal of that job is to make sure that it becomes such a part of the natural environment, such a part of the furniture, that nobody needs to come to you for these sorts of issues anymore.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
And
Because ultimately, as long as you're at a business that's sensible, like ultimately, if you're a valued worker and you do good stuff, then it's not about the knowledge you hold, it's about the skills you have.
yeah,
And those skills will make you applicable to other things. So if you've made yourself redundant, then they'll find something for you to do.
yeah, absolutely, because you've proven that you can be trusted. And the thing is, businesses aren't static, they are forever changing. So the needs are always different. And as long as you can prove that you are a great communicator and that you can work between requirements, that you can work to briefs and help teams, and ultimately it's about communication. If you can communicate effectively, you prove to the business that you're worth being kept around. You're not going to, everyone's not going to say, wow, yeah, such and such did a wonderful job. Chris did a wonderful job of making sure everybody understands X. Well, now we don't need Chris. Brilliant. Fired. Let's hire someone else. They will say, actually, they've made it pretty clear that they know what they're talking about. So we're going to put them on project Y, project Z, and ramp them up to speed, because they've done it before. We know they can do it.
Exactly. Spot on. So we've got the need for standardization. We've got the modern, I guess, situation that we all find ourselves in that gives it a bit of context. We've got the individuals and how they should approach standardization. So standardization is a good thing. Why
Yes.
don't we do it more then?
Well, because it's hard to communicate as well. I mean, it takes effort, and there's a lot of reasons why people don't communicate. As far as some people see it, they're done. They've done their job. The thing is done. They'll never need to return to it, because we make assumptions. And it's also hard where you've got the mindset of that's how we've always done it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the most difficult thing to overcome, because if you put a hot fix in prod and don't tell the developers, or don't capture it in source control, for instance, when they next come to deploy to prod and wonder why everything breaks, that information is going to be absolutely crucial. But of course, we don't think to tell them, because that's how the DBAs have always worked. If there's an issue in prod, we fix it. It's not down to us.
For the developer, right? Like the developer there not commenting on code, because it's not going to break when it gets shipped to prod. My code's amazing.
Exactly. I've written the perfect code. No one's going to find a problem with my code, and I've tested it it works on my machine, so why wouldn't it work on prod?
Yeah, 100%. And I don't know. I think that in a lot of cases, there aren't actually many developers of reality who do think like that. There aren't a lot of DBAs who do think like that, but it's worth highlighting.
I mean, at the end of the day, standardization is really about three things. It's about productivity. If you standardize the approach and you standardize the way that people work in certain situations, on certain technologies, if you have a rule book for how things should be done, you limit the number of further discussions that need to be had around process. Because if you reinvent the wheel every single time, then you risk not doing something that works for you, as opposed to doing something that does work every other time. And B, you're just wasting time. You're taking a decision each and every time, when you could have just taken it up front and have standard reviews in place to make sure that you're constantly following best working practices.
Yeah.
And sorry, go on.
I was going to say, so what can we do generally then? Not generally, specifically. What specifically can we do?
Well, in general, no. But so, I mean, in general, obviously, follow industry standard practices, right? There's a reason why certain practices are industry standard, like masking non-production environments, because it's just the right thing to do. Like using a source control CI and CD system in place for your code and your database deployments.
I love
like,
how that one came after masking for you.
Masking always comes first.
Chris always puts masking first, of course.
It's true. It's true. Even before friends and family. But, everyone accepts nowadays that monitoring your environment, that's another one that's changed so dramatically, is that, 15 years ago, people would have said, oh, why do I need to use a third-party monitoring tool to monitor my estate? Because I've got several DBAs and they've got some scripts that they wrote, and it's moved on from that. You can't easily manage an estate of 1,000 servers now with some scripts and a can-do attitude. Practices change.
People never also think about the kind of crazy things that can happen as well. Like, you don't know what can and can't happen. You just don't know. It's the unknown unknowns.
Exactly.
You don't know that there might be something weird that comes up that you haven't accounted for.
Yeah.
For example, when it comes to monitoring, I recently looked into, as a lot of people have, getting like those little Wi-Fi cameras around your house to do home security. But my wife was very, very against it. Like, she just didn't see what the point was. Why bother? Like, we got an alarm. Why get that as well?
Mm.
So didn't bother. And then a car a few weeks ago, just outside my house, drove into my neighbour's hedge.
Oh, wow.
Completely took out a huge chunk of hedge. It's not the most dramatic, the most horrible thing that's ever happened, don't get me wrong. I'm well aware that there's worse things that happen in cars. But if we'd had a camera there, we'd have seen who'd done it, and we would have been able to say to the police, this is the person who took out the hedge. Instead, that person just drove off. And now my neighbor doesn't have a hedge and no one to account for that missing thing. So weird and wonderful things happen, and that's why monitoring is good, and that's why version control is good, and that's why auditing is good, because, if everything goes great all the time, then you don't need all of this. If everything goes great all the time, then you just develop on production. But it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. And that's why, and we're not talking about introducing lots of additional overheads, red tape, stuff the developers would do. What we're talking about are controls and switches and just ticking boxes so that when the time comes, you have a fail-safe. It's about building your own parachute before you jump. You can't just look at grab a bag thinking it's a parachute only to get halfway down and realize that you've just got a backpack of someone's dirty unmentionables on your back. You've got to open it up, check it, make sure it all works.
Very specific example, Chris. Did that happen to you?
Yes, it did. That's why I don't skydive anymore. That's why I look like a horse. I was actually implanted into the body of a horse afterwards.
That makes sense.
It does, but the obviously it's accountability, not blame. What we're looking for is audit trails, understandability. We're looking for something that's going to make our job as easy as possible, but also our future job as easy as possible. Even coming back to your own code, when I come back to my own code and I've commented it properly, I always think, oh, past Chris, excellent job. Thank you for making my life so much better. And when I haven't, I just want to slap myself.
Always think of future Chris.
Always think of future Chris and send beer, because future Chris doesn't have beer. In fact, present Chris no longer has beer, but
wow, that was
future Chris could. It's only a small bottle, but future Chris will need beer. Anyway, there are obviously things that can go wrong. And I think given that we've mentioned so much to do with rockets and planets and people being on different planets and silos and successful and unsuccessful space missions, it would be remiss of us to not mention, of course, that failed launch. And you try to do something, the rocket takes off, and you're thinking, yes, it's working really, really well. And then it explodes and you think, oh, that didn't go so well.
We took a dark turn there.
Yes, we did.
As the heat got to you.
welcome everyone to sunny United Kingdom, where I am absolutely baked like a potato. Honestly, I am sweatier than a sweaty thing from Sweaty Town, Sweatopia.
So, speaking of failed exploded rockets, where did that come from, honestly?
Well, things can go wrong putting things into version control. Things can go wrong implementing new practices. There's tons of things that can happen.
Things can go wrong when you walk out the door in the morning.
It's true. It's true.
Anyway, should we talk about the next topic?
You're very excited about this, aren't you?
Not really, actually, no.
Wow. Well, in that case, just to put us back, what's your top thing that prevents people from putting their database in source control? What's the top thing that you see that prevents people from doing that and causes their rocket to not take off?
Oh dear. I don't want to be responsible for that. So my number one thing, really easy one, is the amount of objects in a legacy monolithic database. Legacy
That's a good
code
one.
in general.
Legacy code in general, yeah. So everyone out there, completely rework all of your systems, move to a microservice-oriented architecture, perhaps using Kubernetes, perhaps in the cloud, in Azure, and then all your life will be fine. And it's super easy.
How about you, Chris? What's your number one thing?
The thing that I often see isn't so much something that stops them putting it into version control, but it's more so something that prevents it coming out of version control. And that is just dependencies. Many dependencies. I'm talking 3- and 4-part naming conventions, linked servers, invalid objects, all of that sort of bad stuff that it's just hanging around. So I suppose to your point, also legacy databases, it's an absolute nightmare. I mean, I have to hand it to Azure SQL database because you can't have I don't believe you can have cross database, cross server references for Azure SQL DB. So it makes baselining that and getting that into version control an absolute dream.
Also, they tend to be smaller because they're newer.
Yes, this is also true. But I did come across a 6 terabyte Azure SQL DB the other day, which I thought was like, wow, that's pretty impressive for an Azure SQL database. But
also, wow, that would be expensive.
Also, wow, yes, you're right.
Wow.
So there you go. The International Space Exploration Day. Is that the door opening, the automated door on the ship as you climb in? It's like wow.
We only make Owen Wilson wow noises to do any servo motion at all. Wow.
Oh, I was thinking it was more like the new Star Trek sound. It would just be me and you, and as they walk through and the automated doors open, wow. Anyway, so I think it's let's move on to, of course, your favorite I guess segment within DBAle, and that of course is the news. Hello and welcome. It's time for covering the news. Welcome to 1927. Today we're going to be hearing all about the latest and greatest from Chris Creswell. Chris, take it away.
Today in the news, data breaches. So I hope this gets your rocket going as much as it does mine. So an update to something we've been talking about quite a lot, the British Airways data breach from quite a while ago. This is featured in a record number of 4 episodes of DBAle now, I want to say.
I think so.
The only thing
that's featured in more is you.
Oh yeah. 16,000 people had a lawsuit filed against BA, and there has been a settlement. Don't know what the number is, but yeah, there's a lot of people who are going to be getting a cash payout. So that is on top of the fines that were leveraged against BA. Also a lawsuit. What else do we have? So VW have notified people that 3.3 million customers have been exposed after a vendor working on their behalf exposed a lot of customer information from between, get this, August 2019 to May 2021. Just left open on the internet for anyone to get.
Classic.
Oh, yes. So yeah, the information includes the standard stuff that you'd expect at the moment, unfortunately. So that is going to be their driving license numbers, their names, their eligibility for a loan, and also some of them including social security numbers, social insurance numbers, bank account numbers, the date of birth, tax identification numbers, all of that very bad stuff.
Oh.
And then finally, on my very quick wrap up of data breach news stories. So an interesting case from China, just to prove that data breaches in China get investigated as well, in case you didn't believe that for whatever reason. Alibaba was made the victim of an interesting data breach where a marketing firm essentially ran a web scrape of available data and took a lot of sensitive information. So things like people's names, phone numbers, and so on. So they are being prosecuted and yeah, taken to court.
Do we know what's become of the data, where it's gone?
I don't know where it's gone. It wasn't sold.
Okay. Well, as long as it wasn't sold. Yeah, no, as long as it's released for free on the dark web.
Yeah, exactly. That's my thing, right? At least be equal about it. Don't let the wealthy elite
don't
buy
be
all the
evil.
data.
Don't be evil unless you're only being a little bit evil, in which case that's fine.
Exactly.
That's fair. Okay. Well, we do also have another segment as well, don't we?
Ooh, multi-segments.
This one's a new one.
We're
actually.
like a centipede with endless amounts of segments.
Yes, exactly. Well, in this particular case, we're starting to cover upcoming events. So there's actually a few events coming up in the next few weeks between now and the next episode of DBAle. So I'm proud to announce that there is a SQL Saturday, which I think is the first SQL Saturday since the SQL Saturday website went back up. But there is SQL Saturday Orlando 2021, currently scheduled for the 31st of October. So nice Halloween event. So go to SQLSaturday.com and check that out. That will be happening in Orlando, like I said, on Halloween 2021. There are also a couple of other events that you might be interested in if you're a data professional. So you've got on the 28th of July 2021, we have 8 KB, which is a SQL Server internals conference. So you can check that one out at 8kb.online. That's certainly looking like it's going to be a really great event. You've got kind of Bob Ward, Randolph West, Torsten Strauss. So you've got a lot of people in there who are Pamela Hood. So you've got some fantastic speakers there as well. Yeah, welcome from the entire crew. Jeff Moden, fantastic. That sounds great. You've then got Data Geeks Saturday. So that's virtual on August the 7th, 2021. So if you go to data-geeks.org and go to Data Geeks Saturday, you will find that you've got the link for that there. And it covers everything from DBAing through IoT, lightning talks, like all sorts of great stuff there. You've got Dataverse, which is a Data Grillen event. So it's a new event in the Microsoft data platform space. So if you go to datagrillen.com/Dataverse, or again, SQLSaturday.com for the list of events, you'll find a list of different events that are taking place. Again, nice Microsoft data platform targeted there. And then finally, one on the 28th of August, 2021. We actually have Data Saturday 15 in Plovdiv, in Bulgaria, I think it is Plovdiv. I'm pretty sure. Yep, it's located at the House of Culture Boris Hristov at 15 Ulitsa, Gladstone, Plovdiv. I just like saying these locations out, but yeah, Data Saturday, Plovdiv, the 15th or the 28th of August, 2021 in Bulgaria. Sujalavom ne govoria bulgarski. But those are a couple of the events that are coming up.
You've missed out some of them though. What about Skill Up Days? I thought you mentioned that one.
Oh, maybe missing that one. Well, go ahead.
So July 22nd, Skill Up Days at the DevOps Institute's Conference Day. Speaking at that event is our very own and contributor occasionally to this podcast, Grant Fritchie.
Oh, fantastic. Well, go and check out Grant's session there at, was it Skill Ups Days?
Skill Up Days. So if you go to the DevOps Institute /CICD-2021, you'll be able to find it there. Virtual event, that one. Also, Birmingham Dev Barbecue 2021. So this is one that Redgate are sponsoring. Barbecue, database development, beer. What more could you ask for?
Exactly. Brilliant. Well, go and check out some of those then. Go and check out some of the events that are taking place. Some of them are virtual. A couple of them might even be in person or a hybrid of the two. You have a number of different options. But yeah, it's nice to be able to talk about conferences taking place. It's nice to be able to hopefully take part in one of these conferences. I know I've submitted my sessions for past summit, so fingers crossed on that one. But for now, Chris, I think that is us. And I will let you go and tend to your what sounds like a rather upset child.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. All right.
Brilliant.
Well,
all right.
Thanks,
Thank
Chris.
you so much, everyone. Thank you, Chris. As always, absolute pleasure to get a chance to speak to you about how important standardization is, but of course, how much more important Gilmore Girls is and beer.
And space.
So for now, space is all right. It's big. For now, it's thank you from me.
Thank you from me.
Cheers. Stop.
I've got to go. Bye.
Bye.
Nice one.